Democratic Governor Cuomo is under fire for lying about COVID deaths. Republican Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, seems to see his star rise and rise, even though he's done the same when it comes to COVID deaths. And articles like this are helping him do it. This is from CNN. A year into the pandemic, Florida is booming and Republican Governor DeSantis is taking credit. And then from the article, DeSantis' gamble to take a laissez-faire approach appears to be paying off, at least politically, at least for now, as other governors capturing attention in the opening phase of the pandemic now face steeper challenges. That's from Jeff Zeleny of CNN. Maybe a cousin of Ron DeSantis, because my God, this is some good PR for him. Is it true though? Okay, so Ron is riding this wave. Is it actually true? Turns out not really. When adjusted for population, Florida has a lower rate of deaths than New York, including at long-term care facilities like nursing homes, but a higher rate of cases overall. And it leads the country in terms of number of cases of the more contagious and deadlier UK variant of the virus. And then the SF Chronicle reports Florida is currently seeing notably higher levels of coronavirus transmission than California. And now with spring break in full force, people are flocking to Florida's beaches, many flouting COVID-19 protocols. So once again, COVID-19 protocols in Florida, insofar as they existed or that their mayors tried to make them happen, DeSantis it's all bets off, really. And he's being lauded for it.
Yeah, because the sort of people doing the lauding are, like him, far more interested in sort of macroeconomic numbers than the actual people who are dead. And maybe in theory, worried that they might die, but I mean, once they're dead, we're moving on. Toot, the economy's booming or whatever. Yeah, it's shocking that people would flout the COVID-19 protocols, again, as you say, to the extent that they even exist, since DeSantis has been telling them for a year that it's their patriotic duty to cough in each other's mouths. I wonder why they would have come to these sorts of conclusions. And the fact that that Florida has a lower rate of deaths than New York, even though, as you point out, they have a lot of other bad numbers. Well, yeah, New York was like first hit. And we didn't know anything. We literally didn't know how to treat it at that point. We didn't have tests that worked for discovery at that point. Like, okay, if you were worse than New York, that'd be bad news. But the fact that you're slightly better on that metric than New York means virtually nothing, because New York was like worst hit out of any place in the world. And we had basically no defense at that point against it.
Yes, exactly. And just so that everyone remembers, when it comes to actually COVID stats and the lying about deaths, DeSantis oversaw the raid of a whistleblower and former data scientist's home, Rebecca Jones, because she refused to lie about the data. So insofar as we know the data, I'm not sure we can trust it at this point, but because he's a Republican governor and not a Democratic governor, he's celebrated for doing things like this. He's celebrated for lying to his own population. And I mean, things like the medical examiner of Florida called it a sham at one point, but there's no political repercussions because once again, he sees himself as sort of, the MAGA torch carrier. And just to tell you that line continues. I wanna go to this tweet that he had recently, basically trying to explain why kids should be in school. He says, our kids belong in school, and Florida's decision to keep schools open was the right thing to do when compared to other states of similar size. Florida has fewer pediatric cases per 100,000. Now, there was then a report that sort of blew the top off of that tweet. This is from a local affiliate, an NBC affiliate in Florida, because the graph attached, this is from Alternet, purported to show Florida's rate of pediatric cases to those of Ohio, Illinois, and California, which has nearly twice the population of Florida. But the rate he assigned to Florida, 3,794 cases per 100,000, excluded anyone over 14. Whereas the numbers for Ohio and Illinois included anyone under 20 and California's anyone under 18. So not only is it half the population, but he just didn't include ages 14 to 18. Perfect example of him lying about the data, making false comparisons, and then lauding Florida as this miracle example, which once again, it is not.
Yeah. It's not, but he has the benefit of the media not being particularly critical in this case. And I don't have polls for this, so I don't know for sure. But I would guess that Republicans in Florida probably are more satisfied with the response than we would guess. Because again, they haven't just been convinced that this isn't a serious thing in some sort of vague sense that manifests when they watch Fox News. They really do seem to think that. I mean, we covered polls on the Damage Report that the percentage of Republicans who say that the virus is being exaggerated from 1 year ago to just last week, with 500,000 plus deaths between them, is only 1 percentage point different. They lost 1 percentage point of those that say it's being exaggerated. They really do think that. And so has Florida failed? Definitely. I can speak personally. I lost a relative in Florida to COVID. In no small part due to the fact that they don't seem to give a damn about what happens there. But if you're a Republican and you believe that the whole thing's been made up, then sure, why shouldn't you like DeSantis? I mean, Trump likes him. So I think he might actually come out of this looking pretty good, not statistically, but from the point of view of Republicans, I think sure.
Absolutely. And my problem though is with media that is not analyzing this properly. I mean, because you read, it just infuriates me the way that people are like, well, Florida really did do okay relatively. And it's like, okay, and this is what happens when you hyper partisan everything about this pandemic. Red states versus blue states, something that Trump did, right? When you have a patchwork response. So here there's mask mandates, here there's not. Here things are closed, here things are not. And then, journalists and so-called scientists and data analysts are grafting what happened in California to what happened in New York, like you were saying, the epicenter of the pandemic, to what's happening in Florida, and flattening it all when in fact the particularities, the fact that Florida is overall more affluent, there is more space, there are only 20 million people versus California's 40 million people, right? California producing the world's food, or states in the middle of the country that have meat processing plants. It's like these are all factors, and so the metrics that we're looking at this really need to be interrogated. But suffice to say, it's not a success story. It's only a success story, as John is saying, in a vacuum of right-wing propaganda.
Yeah. By the way, there's a commenter who says that Cuomo of New York had more cases under your God Cuomo. Do you know what program you're watching? Do you think that we love Cuomo? That's a weird thing to think. You're new here, aren't you? But anyway, the final thing I would say is, this is me just throwing this out here. I'm not a scientist, not a data scientist or anything like that. I would guess, pick a random Idaho. If you get COVID in Idaho, I'm gonna guess that there's a good chance that you stay in Idaho, you get tested in Idaho, you get treated in Idaho. Isn't one of the issues with Florida's beaches being packed that not all of those people go home to Florida from there? Like you could go to Florida, get sick in Florida, and then, what do you know? Ohio has another case, or Missouri has another case, or Wisconsin has another case. But they got it in Florida. I don't know, I have no idea how many cases there are, but Florida's pitching itself as a vacay destination. And the issue seems to be in packed vacation touristy type areas. If those people leave, those numbers don't go down as DeSantis issues, but they are a result of DeSantis's approach to COVID.
You just outsource the COVID.
Yeah.
I went to Florida spring break and all I got was COVID. That is the line.
We need to make the t-shirt.
Yes.
That's good, that's good. I'm with Sicky, basically. That's what it should be.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.